speaker, Mr. Basel Hammoda, researcher, DBA, Tallinn University of Technology. Mr. Basel has been mentoring startups through several programs over the past 10 years and has done businesses in several countries in Europe, the Middle East, and in US across consulting. And the topic in which he will be sharing his knowledge is sustainable business models in small and medium enterprises. Over to you, Mr. Basil.
Okay. Thank you very much for the introduction and thank you for having me here. It's my pleasure, of course. As Ananya introduced, I'm a researcher at Tallinn University of Technology, focusing mainly on entrepreneurship and business models and educational improvement. So what I'm gonna discuss today or show to you today is actually a results of a research project that we worked on over the last 2 years, and the paper was produced then and published. We aim to understand exactly how sustainability and sustainable business models are applied in small and medium-sized enterprises without a focus on a specific region, so it was more or less of a global study. Okay, so why did we do this study actually? We found that organizations, they're starting to realize more every day that they need to contribute to their communities, and they have to improve their societal and environmental impacts, while at the same time balancing it with staying financially viable, which is not an easy equation to keep. Also, a lot of stakeholders, not only external stakeholders like government, like customers, but even the employees inside the company, they're starting to want their company to be more sustainable. And being a sustainable company is one of the most attractive features for any employer these days. Also, customers on the other side and even business clients, they're interested more in dealing with sustainable companies. They're looking at your sustainability reports and how you're, for example, reporting on your CO2 emissions, what activities are you doing to help your local communities, and so on. So how are organizations responding? They're trying to adapt their business model, not only their offering, not only their marketing campaigns, but their whole business to become more sustainable. How? By putting their goals, by adding goals, those that are addressing the social welfare of their societies and the environment that they're working in. So a definition of sustainable business model, as you can see, it just emerged a few years ago, because it's in research, it is seen as a new and interesting field of research. They're saying that it's a business model which is very proactive in nature, taking in consideration all the expectation of stakeholders, especially when it comes to the triple aim of sustainability, social, economic, and environmental, and with a long-term view. So you're not just doing activities on the short term to appear good or to whitewash your company, but it's a long-term and continuous endeavor. So that's the paper that we published. I was working with Professor Suzanne Durst, who is an expert in this field, and with a small research team as well. And it was published last year, and the link will be made available to everyone if interested. What we did, that we actually thought, okay, let's try first to understand what others have studied, what research has known so far. And we tried to connect the three main streams, so sustainability with business models and small and medium-sized enterprises, trying to understand this field, how it is trending, trying to analyze what we know and also what we don't know so far, so we can actually explore these areas in the future and drive conclusions, not only for researchers or scholars, but also for managers and policymakers. So I believe this is not surprising to most people that the main focus of all the studies was in Europe. Maybe this is driven by the sheer focus of European Commission and other governing bodies on driving sustainability metrics in businesses, while in developing countries we're lagging behind us. You can see that almost 70% of the total studies, we analyze over 85 studies. Around 52 of them are only focused in Europe. Also by sectors, and this was another surprise to us, that the majority of sectors covered is what we like to call sustainable sectors or new sectors. Sectors that's easy to implement sustainability efforts or CSR efforts, while the main sectors like oil and gas, like transportation, or like healthcare were actually not studied at all when it comes to their sustainability practices. So in trying to understand the field, we put the number of studies that have been done so far into 4 or 5 buckets. The first one is looking at antecedents, and by antecedents, we're understanding the challenges as barriers, which is actually the main topic that was studied, why small companies or medium-sized companies are able to adopt sustainable practices, and also what enablers are there, whether internal enablers in the company or in the environment. The second part, actually, their studies were tried, okay, let's look at how those small companies are implementing this sustainable business model or sustainable practices. And there's not a lot of studies in this area, and most of the studies are looking like what we call a snapshot. So they're analyzing the status as it is in this moment of time. While we all know that changing a business model, implementing it, and reporting on it, it takes quite a long time, which needs more longitudinal studies over a number of years. The third one is looking at the impacts and effects. And unfortunately, all the studies there were looking at the effects from a financial perspective. Okay, so I applied sustainable business model or did some sustainable activities. How did it affect my financial sheets? Which is not true, because when you're implementing any sustainable endeavors, you have to look at the 3 angles as well. How it's affecting, for example, the company culture, how it's affecting the social welfare of the employees or of your customers, and so on. The main focus so far, however, has been on the financial side only. And the relations, and this has received quite a lot of interest, which is understandable, because implementing sustainable business model is a new thing, especially among small companies. Everyone say, yeah, big companies, they have the money, they have reputation, they have the client base, while small companies don't. So a lot of people are trying to understand, okay, how can we implement this? How do we address the ecosystem, the external stakeholders' expectations? How does it interplay with other theories or, for example, other management practices? Because we can't just apply sustainable business models without knowing how it affects other areas of management, like operations, like HR, and why not? So I believe the main interest so far is in barriers and enablers, and that's when we're presenting the study. Most people are asking us, okay, so what's exactly preventing small companies from implementing sustainable practices? First of all, and most importantly, they don't have the financial resources and knowledge. So you can imagine that in big companies, yes, the directors there, they're going out, they're getting MBAs, DBAs, PhDs, and whatever, while most managers or leaders of small and medium-sized enterprises, they don't have this awareness or this education. And also they don't have the financial resources. They're just managing on day-to-day basis. The second issue, that they don't have the competences. So even if the leader has the knowledge and know how to implement it, the rest of the team doesn't know how to do it. The third reason is what we call a fixed mindset. So everyone is focused on doing the business as they used to do it for 20 years, especially that a lot of small businesses are family-based and they can't really change the ways they're doing. You know, everyone is resistant to change, and that's the most difficult thing, the culture, the most difficult thing to change. And this leads to the company culture. So the company culture is based mainly on few key people who are controlling the whole operations, and these usually don't like to change things. The organization, the small companies, they don't have the capabilities to do it. And of course, the strategy, and I believe most of us already know that most small companies or even medium-sized one up to hundreds of employees, they don't have a clear strategy. They just have goals, annual goals, and they want to implement it, and they are mainly driven by sales endeavors. Okay, so if we look at research, I'm going to present the directions or our conclusions for research and also for management and for policymakers. So on a research perspective, as we have seen, most of the studies are focusing on the barriers, on enablers, and why not. However, there's a need to understand a lot of other stuff, especially how business models are implemented, which is quite important, knowing that SMEs are not just one type of companies. So they're a heterogeneous group of companies. They're different size. So the way you apply sustainable business models in a company which got 100 or 200 employees is completely different from how a startup would approach it. In addition, all of the studies are usually focusing on companies that have adopted it and have achieved some results, while actually the truth and the startup world or small companies world, that over 90% of them fail. However, no one is trying to understand why this failure happened, although it can provide us with a lot of best practices and maybe worse practices to avoid as well. Also, as we have seen, most of the studies are focusing on reporting how, when I implement this sustainable business model, it's going to affect my bottom line. Yes, but it's not only about the bottom line, it has other aspects, how it affects your employee commitment, for example, how it can affect your reputation in the market, how the customers view you, how other stakeholders might be more willing to cooperate with you if you are more sustainable. Unfortunately, there's almost no studies at all that address the impact on these different factors. And when it comes to managers and policymakers, we believe that there need to be not only encouraged, but actually mandated that there must be annual reporting for small companies. Not only in most of countries now, they say, okay, if your annual revenue is above, I don't know, 5 million or 10 million, you must submit an annual sustainability report without even enough guidance what it should include. We believe that this mandate should be extended to all companies, even small ones, and should be detailed what exactly is expected in this report. Also, there need to be more studies, more people understanding exactly how traditional businesses, which are actually the core of any economy, like oil, gas, healthcare, heavy manufacturing, automotive, pharmaceuticals, and ICT, which is the fastest growing sector. We have come across zero studies looking at sustainable practices in tech sector, which is quite a surprise to us. Also, we believe that SMEs and the manager leader should be more develop this risk-taking behavior, because sustainable business models is a new approach, and there are tens of framework and tens of models that can be applied in companies. However, no one is testing them. A lot of people are afraid, saying, okay, maybe I can apply it and then it will cost me $50,000 and I don't have this amount of money and I have to do a lot of change, but it's impossible to implement it without being willing to take risks. In addition, as we have seen, most of the studies are focusing in Europe, which is understandable. However, small companies are actually more dominant in developing world. And there's almost less than 10%, just less than 10 studies that are focused on countries in Latin America, Africa, Middle East, or Asia. So we believe the international community need to have a shift in focus on supporting sustainable practice in developing countries, rather than putting the spotlight only on Europe and on the US. And yeah, thank you very much. That's it from my side. Ananya, you're muted.
Sorry. Thank you. So I will ask you questions. So my first question is, Most of the time, ESG sustainability initiatives are considered as cost center for small and medium enterprises. How do you think mindset can be changed?
That's an amazing question. That's an amazing question. And that's actually what we found, that everyone is afraid of the cost of change. I believe the way to do it is like any change practice, taking small steps, implementing tools and frameworks that have already been tested out there and copying them, building on best practices. And then when you achieve success, because achieving success in on small scales is very important to drive cultural change within your company, and then build on it and so on.
Yes, Basil. The biggest challenge that we have seen is not about, it's basically that there is no driver for them. So what do you think that, what kinds of driver that we can bring to motivate these micro, small and medium enterprises to move to adopting sustainable best practices, ESG or anything else I'm talking about?
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, that's a very good question. I believe we have to adopt a combination of both the stick and the carrot approach. So the stick approach is what we refer to, that there need to be policy mandates of reporting and sustainability practices.
Right.
And from encouraging small companies, maybe there should be some incentives like tax credits or something like this.
Right.
In the US now, they have CO2 emissions credit. So if you're reporting in your CO2 properly and transparently, you get some credits on top of that.
Very true, very true. I think this is fantastic thing. So there has to be some sort of sensitizations, either the tax benefit or different type of financial help. If it's there, then that will be good. See, I'll give a study. One of the manufacturing company in India called TVS. In order to ensure that they are able to improve the quality across their sourcing partners, they gone ahead and implemented ISO 9000 framework into all of their partners, right? To see to it that each and every suppliers, those who are there, they are all following the similar standard and the practices, and they're making those documents and complying to those. So if that is also happening, let's say if the large companies also adopting and or probably infusing some money to ensure that their suppliers is also getting knowledge, and they are also getting into the sustainable practices, and that will be good. That is another dimension that is it. I would like to know, since you have done quite a good amount of research, this is a very interesting point before Mr. Faze come in. So I would like to hang around with you. One is basically you have given a very good statistic that the most of the research that has been done on the sustainable business practices from the European perspective, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the European. So why do you think that is the scenario? Why do you think?
I believe there are a number of reasons. First of all, that always the EU and European Commission at the forefront of any transformation towards the good in terms of environment, business, and stuff like this, even ahead of the US as well. The second issue that I believe that they don't have as much problems. I won't say real life problem, but as much as problems affecting their basic needs, like the developing worlds are having. So maybe this is shifting the attention of developing countries into providing food flows.
Yeah. Do you think that one Europe is the one Europe strategy is the only one region that probably they have always been looking within one Europe marketplace, and they have been continuously innovating either from the digital perspective or the best practices perspective or industrial automations and various other things? Do you think that one Europe market strategy has given them to be more inner centric than the external?
I believe, yes. If we take one Europe as an example, yes, as an example of centralization and control as well. So one thing, if you're operating in the EU, you must abide by the rules. There is no other option. Unfortunately, we don't have the same in other continents or other regions. Yeah.
Right. And what are the other differentiator that you have found when you studied the research report from US and Europe? Is there any major identification that probably differentiate from the European businesses to the US business, or even in the Asia Pacific businesses?
No, but in Europe, the majority of companies, especially when we're talking about Mediterranean and Southern Europe, are family businesses. And of course, this is another barrier because the family culture or family businesses are rotated around few key people who are controlling it, and it's very difficult to adopt those sustainable practices in them.
Even that is the scenario even in Asia also. Even if you look into India, most of our SMEs are being enterprises are owned by single owner, and preferably been more on the family oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So is there any other in terms of the financial tools or the access to finance is one of the criteria that you think?
Definitely, because of course the economic conditions are more favorable in Europe, which means that you don't have a lot of excess finance that you can direct to what they call nice to have practice, which is still seen as nice to have in a lot of countries and a lot of companies, especially small ones. If you're talking, for example, I'm teaching entrepreneurship and doing research on it. And yes, a lot of young people are aware of this ethical and sustainability dilemmas. But if you go out and speak to startups in the real world, they tell you, yeah, you know what, I'm not earning enough money to pay my bills. So maybe when I make it, I can think about being more sustainable, but not now.
Yeah, that's the mindset actually, because if you don't have money in the pocket, then definitely it will not be. So last but not the least is basically that what kinds of knowledge system that your institutions are planning to bring to the market so that the SMEs can learn from? Do you think that knowledge system probably can help these micro, small, and medium enterprises to start somewhere?
That's amazing question. I believe that's actually a policy direction as well, because I believe we, as let's say in universities or researchers, we're doing a lot of research, and then we have the government bodies and European bodies. They're putting a lot of policies, but these are not reaching the SMEs for implementing it.
Right.
I believe there should be a lot of workshops, a lot of training. Maybe the university should be cooperating with the European Commission and governing bodies in developing a training program addressing those SMEs.
Okay, so now let's say we as a platform, we as a Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade are planning to build a similar type of platform where any company can hover into the platform and they can learn anything, starting from circularity or the sustainable best practices, everything. Will you be happy to partner with us in terms of sharing certain pre-recorded videos or the knowledge things to our platform?
As a person, as a professional, speaking
about myself, in fact, from the university level, that will be good, because we'll be able to get a different perspective. And see, since you have done it, I think one of the research that I've come across is one of yours, that you have gone ahead and done a thorough research of almost 100 plus existing reports on the sustainable businesses. I think if somebody have gone at least and studied that much, they'll be able to know a lot more out of that, right? So there are a lot of I think 10 to 15 videos. Such videos can be put onto a channel, either our channel or probably the platform that we are building it, so that micro, small, or medium enterprises can get more access to all those knowledge and they can move forward.
I'm definitely happy to do this as an individual, and also share it with maybe a few other researchers who will not be interested in this area and work on real life projects. But at an institution level, that's a different process, internal process. So yeah, I can propose it, but I don't think it will be in the near future. You know, stuff like this takes
yeah, it will take. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Basel. We are coming up with a one global platform which will be catering into micro, small, and medium enterprises. The other one will be taking care of the impact startup, which is basically focusing on the innovation and innovative solutions and all. And the third one is being also been promoted by us, but it's been taken care by one of our Singapore director, Miss Dawn, who is also part of these things. We are talking about how to adopt sustainability in the healthcare practices. So there'll be three different platforms we are bringing in, and each of these platform will be having circularity and the sustainability in its heart.
Okay, and the healthcare I understand because I'm a medical doctor myself and used to work in managing hospitals for quite some time. So yeah, understand sustainability in healthcare is not a well-known issue here.
Yes, it's not at all well known. It's basically that, yes, recently we have been discussing with GE, we have been discussing with various Philips, those who have been manufacturing the high-end healthcare machines. So how they have been adopting the sustainability in their design, in their reusability, in their refurbishedness and various other things. So the component in order to manufacture the new machines, they're sourcing the material which is refurbished material. Okay, and the life cycle of those machines also being increased, and they are trying to see how those machines can be recycled back to the factory to refurbish and send it back to the to the market once again. So now the things is happening that products should not be going as a product will be going as a service. So that is what is basically the mindset is being built.
That would be an amazing initiative. I'm definitely happy to contribute. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, you can move it to Mr. Faith. Thank you. I'm looking forward to your interview.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.